good morning, or afternoon, I don't know. I always forget what time of day it is. But basically, my subject is top 5 deadliest avoid when developing and releasing business object reports. A lot of it, if you're expecting for me to show you how to use Webby, a lot of it is about the process of developing and releasing reports, and not necessarily just the specific Webby. Because I think as we get into it, you'll understand why. So, who am I? So I currently work for Mobile Mini. I've been in business intelligence for probably about 5 to 6 years. The rest of my career was set in unloading, loading trucks, pastoring, a bunch of other things that I've done. So it's given me a lot of unique insight to actual data because I've done a bunch of different businesses. An interesting fact about myself is I assisted with opening and launching an online cigar shop. So if you guys like cigars, fantastic, fantastic place. My little thing for that one. But Mobile Mini was founded in 1983. We're the world's leading provider of portable storage solutions. So containers. If you guys didn't know who Mobile Mini was, now you're going to be seeing containers all over. That happened to me when I started working here. I was like, I don't even know what they do. And you go in, and now I see them all over, and you get excited. I was on vacation, I see them, and I'm like, I can't get away from work. The leading provider of specialty containment and solutions in the U.S., and that's that tank and pump division that Heather was explaining. We have 139 locations in the U.S., 2 in Canada, and 15 in the U.K., so we're global. We are publicly traded, and we service approximately 75,000 customers. We have over 2,000 employees, and obviously you guys are here in our corporate headquarters, so we're in Phoenix.
Can you hear them?
I think you can. I mean, you can't rent it from us. You can rent it from a long time from us, but you can buy it from us, and that people have built houses out of there. I think there's an apartment complex around here somewhere that's built out of storage containers.
UK, they use them for like construction sites.
Yep.
The guys who might be living on them, they have that. Yeah.
And we use them for
Bathrooms,
mobile offices as well, so if you need an office, you can just plunk one of these down. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was hoping that you would walk in the door, Paul. But, the other fun thing is, just for a plug for us, is that we're actually hiring.
Is that a prerequisite?
Well, we can Snapchat it on your face, so it's so we're currently looking for a BI developer and a data engineer, and so they didn't really need to do that for me, so my employee picture that I tried to get passed is there, so that way you guys can't recognize me. But I have a question for you guys. Does anyone know who Samuel Langley is? No one knows who Samuel Langley is? So he was an American astronomer, a physicist, an inventor, and of the bolometer, and I don't know what that is, but an aviation pioneer. This guy was the guy who went up against, who was actually funded by the government, and who went up against the Wright brothers. And the reason you don't know who he is because he didn't beat him to flight. So one of the things to really think about, I want you guys to think about when you guys are developing reports in the process, you have to understand this guy was one of the smartest guys around at that time. Nobody really knows who he is. And the Wright brothers, if you guys know anything about the Wright brothers, they were pretty average Joes who owned a bicycle shop. So as we're going through reports, I know that everyone in here is very intellectual and everyone here is very smart, but success doesn't always come from just being smart and knowing the tools and knowing those things. And being in BI, I've been through a bunch of implementations, and I've seen a lot of failures and I've seen a lot of successes, and I really think that when you're developing a report for a user, a majority of it has to do with how you interact with people and how you interact with the business and the users, whether it's going to be a failure or a success. So my 5 top deadly sins to avoid has to do with how we interact with our users, how we interact with our customers, and how we really develop a plan to actually implement a solution. Because a lot of times we like to implement, we like to solve it, and we like to get it taken care of, and we don't take a step back and actually look at the plan. So the first top deadly sin is not having business support. Why do we want to avoid not having business support? Number one, it's difficult getting help with requirements. It's not knowing the business processes, and no one uses the report. So you build this beautiful report that you designed and that you put your heart and soul into, and then, well, it's useless. No one uses it, and no one's adopting it. Those are kind of some of the reasons why we need to avoid that. I think gaining business support is probably the #1 thing that we should be doing as developers, as project managers, as whoever, because if we don't have the business support, our job fails. It fails. Some of the things that we've worked on here, and I'm not saying we're perfect, like the reason I know these things is because I ran into and failed multiple times at these things. So is #1, you just got to find a champion who has authority, honestly. You need to kind of befriend the VP, the CEO, the COO, I mean, whatever level they're at, who you're working for, you want to go above the level who you're working for and find a champion. Another thing is learn the business. If you don't know the business, then it's really hard to create reports for them. So take time to actually learn the business systems. We use SAP. I'd never used actual ECC before, like here, so it took time. And it's still taking time, and I'm still learning. So the more you learn the business, the more you learn the processes, and the more you learn the tools or where the data is coming from, the better you're going to be able to develop reports and get what they need. And I think the biggest thing is communication. I know for myself, I don't know about everybody else, but I know for myself, communication is hard because you're always doing. There's always a fire to put out. There's always something happening that we make excuses. I make excuses that I just can't send that email or I can't send that communication because I have so much to do. And so as you communicate with your users, the more you communicate with them, and I would say communication on the business side, but also communication in getting to know them. I know that sounds weird because we like to be in the weeds and we like to be, we just want to get our job done, but at the same time, the better you actually know the person, the easier it is to communicate with them and the better it is to learn with them. So, and to learn what they're actually looking for. My second one is not having a plan. I think we do this often, like I said before, we usually don't plan out what we're going to do. We just want to go and actually just fix the problem. Because a lot of us run into places where we're firefighting when we're doing reports, right? The report needed to be done 2 weeks ago because they have a presentation tomorrow and they come to you and there's no plan. So as you walk through it, the reason you want to avoid it, there's no finish line. There's not an actual finished project that you have for them because it's always an iteration, right? As we build reports, there's different requirements that continue to come up because as they see the data, they find something different that they want to see. You have no priorities. In essence, I don't know how it's like where you guys work, but where I've worked, it's always, there's 15 different priority ones that you have to actually get completed. And so if you don't take time and plan it out with the business, and you don't know the user, and you don't have a champion, then there's no way, anything's really going to get done, and people are going to view your department or yourself that you're not actually accomplishing anything. And then just frustration. I think we've all sat there and had those situations where we've just been super frustrated because we just don't feel like we're actually getting anywhere. We're on a bicycle that someone put rollers underneath, and we're just spinning our wheels, getting nowhere. So kind of how we, and I say we lightly because Heather has brought in to helping us out, is an agile methodology. I think agile works really well with BI because it's an iteration. So I don't know if you guys ever seen those big, beautiful chainsaw carvings. When I was in 4th grade, I had this. I had one of those chainsaw carvers come to my school, and it was just a big log, right? And as you go through, you see you cut off the big humps, and it just gets more detailed and more detailed and more detailed. And it's the same thing with our reporting and with how we actually do our reports. That agile methodology gives us 2 weeks at a time to get we do 2 week sprints here, but gives us a sprint in a short amount of time to get a piece of that report or a piece of that completed. And so, as you know, there's multiple steps to actually getting a report out. And so if you can actually show progress and show, okay, today we got, the data in the system that we needed, then that helps build those relationships and build trust and gives you the time to actually plan out what you're trying to do or accomplish. And then we have bi-weekly priority meetings with the business. So to get rid of all of the number one priorities, we actually meet with each business unit and with the champions of those business units and actually get, okay, what is your priority these 2 weeks? And then we can commit to this is what we can get committed to these 2 weeks, and we leave a little extra time for some of the fires that actually happen. And I know, like, when I first got here, it was crazy. It was a lot of fun and a lot of frustration, but we've been able to kind of slow down those fires and actually get out reports and important things that people are actually using, and not just shooting out reports that no one was using. So I think not having a plan is a huge thing that we'll see in there. The other thing I have is working in silos. I don't know if you guys have ever been in this situation, but people make changes in source systems, people make changes in anywhere really that affect reporting, or they make changes in the business process that there's no way to account for that unless you're actually communicating with the business. So the reason why we want to avoid those is if information is not shared, you can't use it, and reports end up being wrong. And who's the first person that they actually come and see? BI. The report's always wrong first as you go through it. It causes blame shifting. That's what I mean. Like, okay, it's BI's fault or it's someone else's fault, and it totally kills team morale. So if you're working as a team, it's really hard to work together if you're just working on one thing and not sharing information, not sharing with each other. So I honestly think one of Langley had a team of really intellectual people. He had a lot of money to hire the best, the smartest people, and he was one of them. And I think part of that is when we're so intellectual and we don't work as a team, we lose the fact that we lose the ability to actually get things done together. I think, and I think that a lot of us are introverts. I'm not an introvert. I'm an extrovert. I'm one of the weird ones. But I think when you're introverted, you just want to get the job done. And so if you view someone as being in the way versus being someone you can help bring up and actually help you get everything taken care of. One of the things that we've done is power users and just really investing in people here and training them how to use BO so that way they can be the front line for our things. So how we break down silos is daily stand-ups, so we can share things that it's part of the agile mentality, but that way we can share blockers, we can share information, we get to know one another. I know that meetings can sometimes be a little bit more time wasted and stuff, but these morning stand-ups are good for the times to understand actually what's going on. We have weekly meetings and then bi-weekly meetings again with the business, and that lets us know and ask questions about what's going on and where they might be changing a process, and then that lets us start meetings with the SAP team and just continue to learn actually what's going on. My next one is not documenting. Who likes documentation? Raise your hand. We have a couple.
Reading it, not creating it.
Yeah, creating documentation. Let me. The reason why we want to avoid not documenting is number one, scope creep. Have you guys ever ran into that issue where you're sending an email to somebody and you send them, your report. You're sending them the report and they're like, oh, we wanted this instead of, we wanted X instead of Y. So this happens, I think this happens all the time. I'm assuming it's happened to me a bunch of times where you get an email, you build a report, it's beautiful, you send it over, oh, we didn't want it off that date, or we didn't want X, or we didn't want X, we actually wanted Y. If you don't document your specs, then basically they could just continue to add more and more and more and change everything as they go through. Another reason documentation is important is longer ramp-up time for new reporting resources. So we all know that there's a bunch of turnover in BI. Everyone likes finding different places to go and they want to learn and grow. So the people that you bring on, if there's no documentation on actually the business processes, the the actual requirements, how you actually build your reports. All those things are really important, so someone can come in, read that, and get started, so that way it doesn't take up time of other resources. It doesn't take as much time to get them going. So, and then missed opportunities. Again, if you're in a meeting or you have a hallway meeting with somebody and they say, hey, we want this, you start building it like, yeah, we don't really want that, or it's a change. So it's always good to recap with them. Some of the things that we've done is that we use SharePoint as a hub for our documentation. We use homegrown documentation in the sense that we've built out some spec reports, also some things like we have our how to build a report, so we have a template as well that we use in that. And then Asana. Asana's been huge. It's just a project management software. Basically, you can send over, instead of using emails, you can attach documents to it and update the status of that project. Some people use Jira. There's a bunch of them out there. And it kind of self-documents itself as you're going through. So the other thing that we use as well is, it's actually my next slide, but we use the visual storyboarding method. It's really helpful to walk through with the business questions and get them to actually understand what they're asking for and to actually get rid of a lot of the noise that they're asking for. Because if I go to a user and I ask them, hey, what do you want? It's everything. I want everything, and I should have actually put a report of our huddle up there, but as an example, but it just becomes a mess, and you can't really see any type of analysis out there, or there's no way of finding out what levers they need to pull to actually get it going. It just gives them something to go yell at their employees about, saying, hey, this is too low. And the fifth one, which is kind of encompasses a lot of this stuff, is that we usually do, a lot of the business I've done 20% design and 80% implementation. Like, we want to implement it. We're doers. And so it's one of those things that if you take the time to actually design it right, then implementing it becomes much easier. So you can either spend your 80% of the time at the end fixing the problems, or you can spend the 80% of the time designing, and then you don't run into as many problems. And I felt this a lot, but as we're going down. But it slows down production. Assumed requirements could cause redos, and what also ends up out of this thing is that your reports aren't trusted. And if your reports aren't trusted, then what's the purpose of you helping out? So how we use it, we use the visual storyboard methodology, so it helps us walk our business through questions to actually find the lead and the lag measures. I don't know if you guys know the difference between those, but lag measures are ones that would be like a scoreboard on a soccer game. And lead measures are, shots on goal, how many times someone had the ball, how many passes